It was a quiet Friday evening in the city. People were rushing home for the weekend. Skyscrapers loomed like metallic giants against the fading light. On the 27th floor of one such building, Daniel finished his work. Soon, the once bustling space was just him and the glow of his monitor. Finally, after a deep breath, he decided to call it a night. Daniel was a software engineer. He worked in a large corporation. For the last 6 years, he had spent countless hours hunched over his desk, crafting lines of code. As he approached the elevator, Daniel saw that it was empty. Then suddenly, the lift lurched to a halt. Daniel blinked again. The fluorescent light above flickered and died. Everything went pitch black. Desperate, he turned on the flashlight, its weak beam doing little to pierce the thick darkness. Then, from the corner of the elevator, he heard it, a sound so unexpected, so out of place that it sent shivers down his spine. Breathing, pressing the emergency call button gave him only the sound of clicking. No response, no help. He looked up at the indicator, but instead of the expected numbers, there was nothing. Is someone there? His question echoed in the darkness, unanswered. The breathing continued, now louder, closer. The cable had come loose, leaving the indicator useless. He began to pound on the doors, his screams echoing in the confined space. The darkness was pierced by the flickering of lights above. He wanted to retreat back into the safety of the elevator, but something was blocking the door. When he pushed it, it didn't budge. Finally, it stopped. An indicator lit up, displaying the number 13. Daniel stared at it in disbelief. Curiosity battled with fear in Daniel's mind. Should he venture forth or stay put until help arrived? The footsteps drew nearer, and Daniel could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He tried the door again. Still no luck. Before he could decide, footsteps echoed in the distance. The figure moved closer, and for a moment, the light from outside caught a face. His phone slipped from his numb fingers and crashed to the floor, plunging him into absolute darkness. It was a face devoid of life, a visage of death itself. Then the light shifted, and the face vanished from sight. The light from his phone flickered, its battery dying. Suddenly, the doors slid open wider, revealing the shadowy hallway. There was no 13th floor in that building. The floor skipped from 12 to 14. They stayed on, but dimly, tinged with a sickly red hue. The lift lurched downward. A thick fog hung in the air, illuminated only by broken light fixtures that dangled precariously from the ceiling. Sparks showered down, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. He screamed again, but this time there was no reply. The lights flickered ominously above him, and then they died. The temperature dropped sharply, sending goosebumps erupting across Daniel's skin. "Help, please," he cried. "Can anyone hear me?" His pleas went unheard. In the suffocating darkness of the elevator, his imagination ran wild. Was he alone in there? Was someone else trapped in the shaft with him? Or was it something worse? Others claim that the building has number 13th floor, as if the tragedy was erased from existence. He tried the button again, but it only made a clicking sound. He'll speak of a cold draft on the 13th floor, a draft that carries the faint echo of screams. If you listen closely, you might hear them. The footsteps, the rasping breaths, the screams of a man trapped between the living and the dead. So without hesitation, he stepped in. He pressed the button for the ground floor and leaned against the cool steel wall of the elevator. Tonight, though, the project he was working on seemed to have hit a snag. All he could see was the empty corner of the lift, shrouded in darkness. The breathing grew closer still, and Daniel took a step back. His phone slipped from his numb fingers and clattered to the floor, its light extinguished. And yet here he was, still wrestling with it despite the late hour. As the minutes ticked by, the office around him emptied. Files clicked shut. The hum of computers faded. Yawning, Daniel stood up from his chair, stretching his stiff muscles. He gathered his things, double-checking that he didn't leave anything behind. A cold feeling crept up his spine. He felt fear for the first time that evening. As he stepped out of the office, he realized how silent it had become. The usual murmur of conversations was replaced by a heavy quiet. The only sounds were the low hum of the fluorescent lights overhead and the occasional creak of the old metal frame of the building. He walked toward the elevator, his footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness of the hallway. For a moment, everything was normal. The elevator started its slow descent, the familiar sounds accompanying its movement. Daniel blinked, momentarily disoriented. What had happened? In the sudden silence, he heard the hum of the motor change, becoming strained, distressed. Daniel frowned, realizing that something was wrong. The gentle hum died down, replaced by a suffocating silence. He fumbled for his phone, finding it in his pocket. His heart pounded in his chest. It was slow, raspy, and deep. It wasn't his own breathing. "Hello?" he called out, his voice shaking slightly. He swung his light toward the sound, but it revealed nothing. He was enveloped in a suffocating darkness. Panic threatened to consume him. He pressed every button, but the lift remained stuck between floors. One floor, then another. The doors creaked open, revealing a long, dark hallway. He could feel something waiting in the shadows, watching him, sensing his fear. The hallway beckoned, shrouded in mystery and danger. They were slow, dragging, getting closer. He turned, his gaze darting around the elevator as panic swelled within him. A figure stepped into the doorway. Daniel screamed, his voice raw with terror, but the sound was lost in the darkness. It was pale, gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to stare right through him. The doors refused to close. Trapped between the living and the dead, Daniel stumbled back. The last thing he saw was the figure stepping into the elevator. Silence descended, heavy and suffocating, broken only by his own ragged breathing and the rasping breaths of whatever had entered with him. They never found Daniel. Some say his spirit is trapped on the 13th floor, condemned to wander the endless halls with the creature he encountered. The building management insists there are only 12 floors, but the old janitor will tell you differently. So if you find yourself near that building, avoid floor 13. For those who enter there, no one ever returns.